Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Club of the IBSA. Hopefully a number of you have joined before. And this is part of a regular series of short, quite brief half-an-hour webinars, which the IBSA has held over the last few months and will continue to hold. I'm Anthony Turner. I'm a partner at a law firm called Farrers in London. I'm a member of the IBSA committee in the UK, but I have the very easy task today simply of introducing are very good speakers and maybe asking them a couple of questions as we go through. If you have questions, please put them in on the chat function and we'll either pick them up as we go through or if there's time at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to two speakers from Corpag, David T. Bookhurst and Tim Van Santen, and then separately Jan Mrazek from MHQ Law in Dubai. Over to you.
Anthony, thank you very much. My name is Tim Van Santen. Good afternoon or morning, everyone. I'm the MD of Corpag in Spain, and I'll be helping you today a bit on the corporate service providing side. So please, if you have any questions during the presentation, just shoot them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them.
Good morning, good afternoon, people. My name is David T. Bookhurst. I'm also with Corpag and I'm based in New York.
And I guess that if you have the offshore in the US and you have the onshore with Spain, you need to have some midshore somewhere. My name is Jan Mrazek from MHQ in Dubai. And with my colleague today, we thought that what we would do is look at what lies ahead for us as corporate services provider as a big word. And we'll try to have some sort of lively discussion on what our thoughts are and whether there are some recipes to be taken by all of you in your own jurisdiction. And what we agreed to do is, before you look into the future, is that we look what has gone wrong and what has happened to us over the past couple of years. And if we look at the past, is some sort of function starting in the old world and then a constant fragmentation, and let's not beat around the bush, some sort of drawing down on quality. Lots of competition, right? David and Tim, between jurisdictions, some newcomers in low tax countries, not exactly applying the best practice, etc. So do you see that as an issue? You've seen this aggressive tax practices, aggressive tax planning, minimum of compliance. And that's what really led us to the media hated us. The media do not like us. We're CSPs. Of course, we're there to evade taxes. No, we're not. So now, fast forward, and in 15 years, we are one of the most regulated function in the world. We are almost as regulated as banks, or definitely as asset manager. There is number of policies that are coming from the old world, coming to the offshore world. And with this in mind, us CSPs are really in trouble. It's become difficult. We have a bad name. There's a lot of regulation. Clients do not like us. So this is where we are. Where are we before today, and what lies in the future? And that's what we want to cover with our colleagues. So Tim, David, we talked about the past. We talked about where we are. Anything to add on whatever has gone wrong before we actually talk about potential recipes on how we can improve that?
No, absolutely, and spot on, Jan, what you were mentioning. We believe that in the past, of course, we were much more in the tax aggressive arena, at least if you look in hindsight, which is more the norm in the practice. Minimal compliance, copy passport, utility bills, that was pretty much it. But there was no sophisticated manner of verification of data and documents or online searches. Even though there was some substance with the offshore world, for instance, if you had a PO box or a shared office, you pretty much dealt with that. But also the supervision of the local authorities was definitely lacking. There was lack of international cooperation between them, the NGOs, but also the industry itself. And of course, as you already alluded to, things like WikiLeaks, LuxLeaks, the UBS issues with US taxpayers and Panama Papers didn't do any favors for our industry. We're still perceived as, oh yes, those are the guys who provide tax avoidance structures and money laundering opportunities, which is not what we do. So that's definitely what we have seen in the past. Now, as you already mentioned, in the future, the governments have stepped up, the NGOs as well. They're expanding our role as gatekeeper, which of course is crucial to the industry, but they're also expanding it to other professionals, including law firms and accountants, which is quite interesting. Other thing is what we have done is enhanced our compliance procedures by having more internal staff experts, by having also IT infrastructure being utilized to the fullest, but also looking into enhancing the procedures itself worldwide on enforcing client onboarding and ongoing activities. And of course, we are much more use making of online data searches.
So maybe if I rebound on that, so you already segued into what we agreed to be our first theme, which is how can we KYC our clients better, not only on making the experience more pleasant, but more importantly, on knowing them better, on identifying their needs, on perhaps applying best practice around the world. So, hey, Tim, you are in the old world. So old world usually leads with that, with ease of doing business in terms of digitalization, etc. So what is Corpac doing in this front that is new or that you were not doing, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, in terms of onboarding client experience and ensuring best practice across the board, not only with your clients, but also with vendors and people around?
That's very interesting that you mentioned it, Jan, because that's exactly what we see, especially in terms and in collaboration with these law firms and these CPAs of onboarding these clients, which normally goes hand in hand on setting up the structure. We implement it. We have to do our KYC for that. We will do the day-to-day later on, but we need the tax lawyers or the CPAs with us to together set up everything. So both on the KYC client onboarding side, but also together with these CPA firms, what do we see? What is new? Well, interestingly enough, you see a lot of fintech companies nowadays that have picked this up. So we are currently working on a new system where you can use your camera actually on Zoom or wherever, where we identify you as a person, we identify your passport, you later send us a copy, and within the frame of making like a snapshot of the camera, we can basically do a certified copy in a way, which is enough for compliance purposes. We also see that with the address verification. So you send us a utility bill, it doesn't need to get certified by a CPA or you need to go to a notary to get it certified. No, we will simply send you a postcard that has a QR code. You scan the QR code when you're at home, and it basically from the QR code, we can read out where you're located. So those are two innovations that we basically see a lot nowadays. Yeah, and the interesting part of this whole KYC and due diligence stuff that we are doing is that we really can help also these CPAs, these accounting firms and law firms in helping to get their files in order, which is becoming more and more demand for by local governments to also make sure that these type of companies are regulated. So we are now seeing more and more that these companies ask us to be involved in their onboarding process and to, for example, help them with world checks, with Google checks. These are the tools that we use to make sure that our clients have nothing to hide and are squeaky clean.
And do you think that, just rebounding on that, do you think that a firm that is used to cross-border apparently has an advantage there, because you're used to do that all the time, and typically if you are intra-group, you would put reliance on someone that is a trusted partner because you know your processes, while you typically in Spain, but I've ventured to guess the same in the US, if you work with someone that has only domestic practices, maybe they will not as open to a smooth client experience and I would say standardized KYC, right?
Definitely. We see a very big advantage of having offices worldwide. For example, I onboarded a client like a week ago, which was a client originally from the UBO, was from Argentina. Then it helps a lot that we have local people on the ground that can also look into local matters to make sure that the KYC is properly done. And for example, for the client to go to our office there and have certified copies in our office. So that definitely helps, Jan, in this case.
So maybe, and David, then I'll jump to you, but it's digital clearly is in. COVID has accelerated the process. Paper is out or almost there. And if you want to invest in something, we believe, Corpag and MHQ, that your system, how your client, how your staff is using this system and this data is paramount. We see it with regulator coming and check on us. Look, back in the days, it was very complicated. It was a 2 days review. Now it takes me 15 minutes with my AML person just pushing on a button and just showing data like this, and they leave after a cup of coffee. So it's great. It makes our life easier. So clearly digitalization, a big help for KYC, but also for ongoing governance. And David, we had this when we prepped. I had this theory of the corporate secretary being back in business, baby. Is this the case in the jurisdiction you cover? Do you think that governance is back in that? How can CSP help in that respect?
Yes, exactly. I think corporate governance is a key factor to ensuring that the proper structuring is put into place and also ongoing. Nowadays, you see a much more strict adherence to corporate governance, which means in practice ensuring that regulations and business practices are properly followed with supporting legal documents, which now more often than before we see in conjunction with the law firms to put into place, but also having decision makers put into writing actions they've done on an ongoing basis. Furthermore, we also see, even though it's not mandatory in many jurisdictions, we see financial audit requirements being put into place. This means that you have annual accounts, quarterly reports, and these are prepared by corporate service providers to have a further insight into the full activities of the structure. It also enhances the Know Your Client compliance file, which is also important because that in turn minimizes the risk and unnecessary surprises. And quite often in a private client atmosphere, they quite enjoy having a complete financial overview of their structure. There is also a need to ensure proper and complete filing of various government filings, which are non-tax related. So now we're talking about online sales numbers, we're talking about Chamber of Commerce's, national statistical offices, central banks, and those should become much more crucial, if not anything, because of the penalties being levied on those. And the last thing we want to mention on that one is important also for the ongoing banking relationships that we have, that they are advised prior to the transactions on the details of the source, destination, and the purpose of the transactions, and sending supported documents. And this has become much more of a higher concentration than prior.
So yes, Jan, to answer your question, it is back. We're back in business.
We're back, baby.
That's it. Yeah, no, and it's just to also add value there and make sure that substance is given to the structure. So this is what we really do on a day-to-day basis, and having that added value that we do on that side. I think the same goes for the next bullet, Jan.
Yeah, and I think that's our takeaway from both the offshore, midshore, and onshore world is that there is an increased level of regulation, often trickling down from financially regulated entities and listed entities that is now being pushed to family businesses, SMEs even, in multiple jurisdictions. What that means is that the corporate secretary needs to be much more sophisticated, much more globally aware, and we become, and that's our second takeaway, educators of the market, not in terms of, or not only in terms of KYC, but also in terms of what is new, what is out there. Think of this. This is the practical way of doing it. Hopefully, we do not have too many lawyers here, but often lawyers scare people for an opinion. This is good. We need lawyers. I'm a lawyer myself, but I actually believe that we should say, look, this is it. It's not complicated. Do this, this, this. And if you need a legal opinion, go and get one. And I think that's the role of CSP, to be proactive towards clients. And that's probably our second team. And as part of this governance team, what we identify as one of the future aspects for CSP also to be very present is the genuine, bona fide resident director / non-executive director. And I want to hear both of you in your own jurisdiction. In our jurisdiction, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had our first UBO regulations, which for the first time defines what a nominee director is. Until now, we did not care. Now we do. And we actually believe at MHQ that if you have a director, it needs to be someone with a pedigree and actually someone that, hey, I have experience. Let me share my experience. I've been through ups and downs of business. I've seen business going up and down. I will sit on your board and I will give you more added value. So the question to you guys is the role of the non-exec in general, but also as provided by CSP, the risk of providing the function, but also the benefit of showing to your clients, hey, we have quality people on board that can add more than just to tick the box. Who wants this one?
Well, let me grab that one, Jan. No, definitely. What we definitely see is on one side, of course, for tax regulations. Many of the holding companies, for example, onshore, have a requirement of having a local representative. That's something that has been out there for a while, but is becoming more and more crucial nowadays. But also, indeed, like you said, Jan, to have someone on the board that has knowledge of local requirements, but also local opportunities. Yep. And making sure to help your client's business to develop in said country. So this is definitely something that we see more and more interest in, and also willingness of the client to actually pay for it. Because it was always a service that people said like, okay, why do I pay you, I don't know, 2, 3, 4K for a resident director? Well, because we will add value to your business.
Yeah, I agree with that. And interestingly, it's always when you see a problem that you are happy to have someone with a pedigree. Or with experience and with some gray hair. And yes, I have some there. Because it's then you need to interact with the bank, with the regulator, with the taxman. And there, if you have just exposed with someone that you never met with, that you can't trust because you never met them, it's an issue. We believe in this model a lot. We think it will trickle down. We think this is a fantastic opportunity for CSPs to focus on higher quality clients, but provide them with higher value services. And non-executive director is another one, perhaps just out of personal experience, is a hugely strategic one. If you provide non-executive directors, you have the ability firsthand to tackle opportunities, whether it's for you or for your network. That doesn't mean you have a conflict of interest, but that means that you are there to guide your client firsthand because you identify issues. David, we wanted to discuss the issue of reporting, and it goes along with higher regulation. How do you see the role of the modern CSP in terms of reporting, both internal, external, in terms of expertise? Because that's rarely something the clients would have, right? So how do you tackle that in your jurisdiction? And maybe then Tim, you can share what's happening in Spain too.
Sure. So nowadays with the reporting, it's an alphabet soup of abbreviations, and you can't sleep one night and there's another regulation popping up, and that has confrontational aspects to the client structures. And even though clients in the beginning were either skeptical or not sure that they need to do it, it's clear that they need to. And one thing is important is that CSPs keep in contact with the authorities to clearly understand what's the basis for those regulations and to understand the role of the CSPs in that aspect. But from FATCA to CRS economic substance, it's also crucial to have in-house experts. These are internally trained, or they've come from maybe the NGOs or the government practices expertise to have on board, so they really understand the body of the regulations and what's going on. We also believe that it's safe to say that not all regulations are spot on and right in the beginning. Therefore, we believe that having good relationships with the government and the authorities means we get a chance to say something about the regulations and give them maybe more practical side of it, so it becomes more smoother to what's really required. And we've done this, for instance, in the DFI and economic substance. Yeah. But it's also important nowadays with all the reporting, the data is quite often similar. The analysis may be different, so IT infrastructure is crucial to collect the right data and to do the analysis and to come up with a classification, review, and reporting and so forth. On the other hand, we also see our extended role as an advisor, if you want to call it that way, to primarily the law firms, accounting firms, to help them understand what role they have to play in similar reportings. You can think of DAC 6 and so forth.
Tim, maybe we wanted to finish off with the future in terms of what sort of services can CSP propose today and tomorrow, and how can they evolve into a multi-services platform with an entire menu of services? And we thought that, and we did that, we compared all our practices, and you say, okay, what can we do more to benefit our clients? And you guys came up straight away and say, look, we do accountancy. Okay, great. So talk to me about where do you see the value in outsourcing accountancy? And then let's try to have a discussion on what else we can plug on that service, whether horizontally or vertically. What sort of other services we can go in? Let's go draft style.
Definitely. No, accounting is nowadays, I think, a very, very important business line for us. And why is it important, not only for us, but also for our clients? That what we have identified basically within Corpac is that many corporate clients, corporate structures, how they start their business in a foreign country is basically mainly by offering or sending maybe one employee there and then needing accounting and local payroll services. So one of the search terms that we see a lot on Google nowadays for looking for a good accountant or corporate service provider or payroll provider in the jurisdiction where they actually want to start their business next. So that's one of the things that we have identified, and it's one of the key elements that we see now in our business of starting or getting introduced to a client is actually accounting work, local accounting work. And that can be for a permanent establishment or for a branch or for basically an employment without establishment. Just one guy that comes here to basically sniff around like, okay, is this jurisdiction our next one? Well, we are more than willing and able to help with that and to take the client to client from there. On the private client side, and David is more involved on the private client side, we also notify some interesting accounting services.
Yeah, to jump into that, thanks, Tim, is private clients in the past, simplistic holding of real estate or investment accounts weren't so concerned about accounting. And we saw slowly but surely the need for that, but what primarily hit were the tax amnesty programs in South America, where a lot of the clients were worried because the local accountant didn't speak English or didn't understand US GAAP. And there was, of course, always the connection to having supporting legal documents, resolutions, and so forth. So we did a big stint on preparing a lot of the financial statements for clients with the so-called offshore accounts, so they can better prepare themselves and have supporting documents and the burden of proof turned when they are going into the tax amnesty. So we've seen an uplift on financial statements requirements, even in the private client sector.
So you described a specific time where people want to outsource. For example, when they go into a country and initially they would outsource. I actually think this is and will only grow because people are looking at optimization. They try to outsource everything that is low value and they try to invest what is better value. Actually, and COVID has probably accelerated this. What I see, and actually what I believe deeply, is that outsourcing is not only for low value services. I think CSPs can invest in brains and have these brains rented to the market. And hear me on what I have in mind here. We discuss accountancy. Often people do not want an accountant. What they want is a CFO. They want someone that is senior, that is able not only to do the past, but also to do proper projection, etc. And depending on the country in the world where you go, it's not only about the past. It's actually, hey, help me do not cash accounting, but predict my budget, etc. And CFOs, we call them virtual CFO, can be rented out. It's not very expensive. It's highly profitable. And it can be plugged in very easily on an accountancy fee. If you provide accountancy to your client, at some stage, they will grow big enough that they may want to hire someone in. But will they grow big enough to actually want to hire a CFO? Not sure. Or it will be not a competent one. But if you have a very good one, extremely strategic for you with business. And you all have CFO. So it's not difficult to just offer that service, I would say. I don't know if you guys, any of you, Tim or David, offer that service, but I know you offer payrolling, right?
Correct. So yeah, to jump into that, virtual CFO is something definitely we have identified. It's something that we're looking into, but it's not something that we offer right now. But indeed, payroll is, and related HR services as well. So for example, those type of clients that start their branch in Spain, if you talk about my jurisdiction, for example, you definitely see the need also to help out on the HR side. Like, okay, the public holidays, how does it work, the amount of holidays, who's keeping count of the holidays, all the basics, but even the more sophisticated stuff like hiring and firing is something that clients, especially clients that are focused on something else, on their business, they would like to basically give to us and to take forward.
Can I interrupt you on this? Is it only for inbound client or is it also for the domestic market?
It could even be for the domestic market, Jan. We have seen, especially in Spain, also interest here for us. But those are clients, especially in Spain, that already have something in a foreign country. So
Yes.
they would need someone to make basically the bridge between Spain and, for example, the Netherlands or the UK, because their local payroll provider in Spain doesn't understand what is going on in other countries, and we do.
Yeah, it's super interesting. We in the UAE, we have started in accountancy, we added payroll, we added outsource HR, and then guess what? People said, look, now we want to hire someone. Can you recruit for us? You bet we can. So we added recruitment. So this entire accountancy, VAT, virtual CFO, senior financial officer for regulated firms, plus the recruitment, this is all one thing that CSP can do, not at a completely crazy price. I'll tell you a small tip. I don't say it too loud. When I hired my HR team at MHQ, I didn't have an HR. I was doing that myself. I hired a team. They were profitable from the first day because we started to recruit for clients straight away because we had a database. So, hey, there you go. So this, we think it's very good and it maintains your knowledge. And again, we come back to the education, right? Is if you have that in-house as a service, then it's very easy. If you have a question, you do not need to go outside and pay for the service. You have it in-house. We talked about another one, and David, you opened with that. You said KYC, compliance, etc. Monetizing outsource compliance is increasingly, we believe, something in all the jurisdictions we are in, Spain, US, BVI, and the UAE, something that will go forward for sure. We do it for financial services, outsource compliance, and it will now trickle to high value dealers, real estate people, etc. And this can be for the domestic market, not only for entry to market.
No, exactly. I think for KYC is becoming much more of a commodity nowadays than it was before. And sophistication that you need to do is, of course, we love to have clients onboarding. So we do a lot of pro bono, if you want to call it that way. But so long
we're generous.
We're generous. But we're also trying to help, of course, the associate industry from law firms and accountants, because sometimes they are also forced to do something similar. They may not have the infrastructure or knowledge, and we're happy to sit down with them and see if we can put that together. But we also work with, let's say, joint ventures that the partner said, listen, could you do some basic background research? And then that's something we can do as well, that may be at the beginning phase of certain private equity investments and so forth. So we are looking into how we could monetize it, but it's not our main goal. But the sophistication of the KYC does involve a lot of investment, which we're happy to do for long term, of course.
Great. I mean, it sounds to me like you're all instead of following the regulation, you're actually leading a lot of the developments in the sector around things like governance, etc. Is that something you'd agree with, and is that a change that you've seen very recently?
Maybe I'll jump on this one. We just had our FATF review last year. And when you are as part of the privileged number of firms that being interviewed by the government on what do you think we should do, or by the interviewer, okay, how is it going? That's great, because you have the ability to change policies. Look, I don't know if some of the people are from Jersey here, and you should applaud yourself, because back in the days you got gray listed. And what did you do? You said, look, we are going to increase our regulation big time. You lost 20% of your clients almost overnight, over a year. Over 5 years, you doubled your clients. Why? Because regulation sells. But regulation sells if you have smart people that can be the interface and can actually explain it to the client and explain them the benefit of that. And I think Corpac believes in that big time. We at MHQ as well. And Corpac is a large firm, and they have been growing because of that, because they understand regulation better and they can advise their clients better.
Yeah. That's been brilliant. We're quite keen to keep to time on the seminars. That's been a fantastic summary. Thank you all very much for that. Just to quickly flag upcoming seminars. So we have the next one in a week's time. The Tuesday seminars is about DAC 6, topical question for all of us, which we're all grappling with a little bit. And then the following week is about setting up businesses in the UK for Russian entrepreneurs. So I think maybe more generally, if you have any thoughts on subjects you'd like to hear from IBSA on, or you'd like to speak on, please do get in touch. Equally, I think if you'd like to follow up with any of these speakers, I'm sure we can connect you afterwards. So again, get in touch with IBSA and we can make that happen. Thanks all for joining. Thanks again to our speakers. Really interesting session, and we'll hopefully see you all very soon. Many thanks.